1906, President Theodore Roosevelt signed into law the Pure Food and Drugs Act. This created the powerful new Bureau of Chemistry, the precursor to the modern FDA. This agency maintained an array of advanced analytical laboratories and began aggressively testing food and beverage samples for adulterants. They were not messing around. Unlike the slow bureaucratic machinery of today, if these early inspectors found something suspicious in a product, they used immediate blunt enforcement powers. They would seize the shipment on the spot and criminally prosecute the individuals responsible. All of this set into motion a bizarre confrontation with a new industry that was taking the breakfast table by storm: bottled grape juice. In the early 1920s, federal agents from the U.S. Bureau of Chemistry began launching raids to seize pure American grape juice, angrily accusing producers of selling an adulterated, chemically faked product. What crime had these grape juice makers committed? Well, their juice tasted too much like grapes. Specifically, federal agents were convinced that these premium juices had been illegally spiked with an industrial counterfeit. You see, early flavor houses, they didn't copy the chemistry of fruits. They bought bulk aromatic chemicals straight from luxury perfumeries. In those days, a grape soda was quite literally flavored with a scent meant for French cosmetics and soaps. This scent was supposed to smell musky, reminiscent of a fox. So when the government looked at this brand new grape juice industry, they weren't being ignorant of basic fruit science, nor were they falling for the modern cliche that artificial grape tastes nothing like the real thing. Their logic was perfectly sound, believe it or not. If a bottle of pure juice lit up their lab test with the exact footprint of a synthetic perfume oil, assuming it was rigged and fake, made perfect sense. In other words, surprising as it sounds, the Bureau of Chemistry was being entirely logical when they concluded that this grape juice tasted a bit too much like a bottle of grape soda. So to understand how the government managed to confuse a vineyard with a crime scene, we have to look at the actual history of flavor chemistry. The core molecule behind artificial grape flavor is a compound called methylenthranilate, and its discovery had absolutely nothing to do with grapes. In the 1890s, chemists isolated this compound from neroli, the essential oil of orange blossoms. They didn't sniff it and think, ah yes, this smells exactly like a grape. No, they recognized it as an intense, sweet, and floral aroma with a musky backbone. And so for decades, this compound was mass-produced from coal tar byproducts for one market, the luxury perfume industry, where it was used to scent soaps, cosmetics, and fine fragrances. As I explained, these early beverage and syrup makers, they didn't work in secret labs to synthesize fruit flavors from scratch. That was far too difficult and expensive. Instead, they just went out and bought bulk aromatic compounds straight from perfumeries because it was a cheap, highly concentrated way to punch up sugar water. So flavor chemists in those days were basically mad scientists. They just tinkered and tinkered until they found something that worked. So they discovered that this one specific perfume ingredient, usually called neroli oil, when used as a flavoring, happened to pass for grape to the public. It could also be mixed with other ingredients to make other flavors. For example, if you mix methylenthranilate with ethyl acetate and ethyl butyrate, you get apple flavor. But methylenthranilate pretty much alone was the main ingredient used to flavor early grape-flavored sodas like New Grape and Grapico, and of course, grape-flavored candies. But it's not unique to grapes or citrus blossoms. It's all over the place. It's in some strawberries and guava and mango and peach and apricot and even in cocoa and black tea. And if you like the scent of jasmine, it's in there too. Now looking back, it would be easy to mock these early regulators as completely scientifically illiterate. But as we've learned, their panic actually was completely logical. Remember, we just learned that this was not an uncommon compound. But you know what? The one place it wasn't known to be common is a bit unexpected. So to the chemist of the era, the science was simple. Nature made fruit and factories made methyl and threnolate. So, contrary to popular belief, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that an actual agricultural crop would naturally produce the exact same compound used by industrial counterfeiters. In line with the knowledge of the 1920s, finding this chemical inside a bottle of premium juice didn't prove the fruit was potent, it proved the product was rigged. Strange, but true. The irony was that the government's brand new analytical tools quickly became a diagnostic conundrum because the chemists were so baffled by the sheer power of their own test. The line between a lab engineered fake and a pure bottle of juice became completely blurred. To see exactly how all this was playing out, let's look at this official food law notice published in the Beverage News in 1923. Analysis of a sample of the article by the Bureau of Chemistry showed that it was essentially a mixture of sugar syrup and tartaric acid, flavored with methyl and threnolate and artificially colored with a coal tar dye, amaranth. That report was correct. The government was successfully seizing those blatant counterfeits like the Grape Smash syrup from the Tropical Food Juice Company. Then, when they tested those bottles of pure, unadulterated American Concord grape juice and found massive concentrations of that exact same methyl and threnolate, they reached the only logical conclusion their era allowed. They assumed the real fruit juice had been boosted with artificial perfume oil to cheat the system. Now, Welch's grape juice and other grape juices are made out of Concord grapes, but if you've ever eaten an actual Concord, well, it doesn't taste like grape juice. It's a weak, watered-down version of the juice. So there was a second reason the government was so easily fooled. They didn't realize that the factory pasteurization process was acting as a natural flavor amplifier. When you eat a raw Concord grape, the intense flavor is heavily locked up in the skin and outer layer of the flesh, while the watery interior dilutes the experience. It's a milder hit of flavor, but unfermented grape juice was a brand new industrial product. To make it, processors boiled massive vats of grapes to kill the yeast and pasteurized the juice. This intense heat did two things. It stripped away the excess water and directly extracted the concentrated methyl and threnolate straight out of the skins. The resulting juice wasn't just liquid fruit, it was a heat-concentrated flavor bomb. Because it tasted vastly more powerful than a raw grape, the Bureau just assumed that that level of intensity was physically impossible without adding perfume oil. They didn't realize that this brutal, primitive boiling process had accidentally engineered a brand new, permanent flavor standard, one that industrial factories would spend the next century locked into protecting. But eventually, the backroom boys at the Bureau of Chemistry, think of them like the modern FDA, discovered that the American Concord grape from which grape juice is produced was chock full of the very chemical the factories had been copying. It's no wonder that artificial grape was so grapey tasting to Americans. The grape they were most familiar with, after all, was the Concord and other grapes of the foxy variety, such as the Catawba, the Niagara, or the Delaware. Remember that musky scent and taste that is reminiscent of the musk of a fox? There you have it. This is not to say that the government wasn't correct in its belief that grape juice products might be adulterated. They actually found many that were. But the common table grapes like white or red seedless grapes we commonly eat today, well, they're quite low in methyl and threnolate. In fact, they're quite low in flavor, period. So if you didn't grow up drinking Welch's grape juice, you probably don't think artificial grape flavor tastes like grapes. But if you do know grape juice, you know it's unlike any other bottled fruit juice. It's very potent, very sweet, and jammy. And that brings us to the ultimate modern irony. Today, if a beverage company wants to make a pristine, high-end fruit juice, they use gentle, split-second flash pasteurization. It kills the bacteria and yeast, but it leaves the delicate fresh flavor of the fruit completely intact. But if Welch's did that to a Concord grape today, their sales would plummet. You see, a gently processed raw Concord grape juice is thin, sharp, and intensely tart. It tastes like unfermented wine. So we don't actually love the taste of raw Concord grapes. We love the taste of grapes that have been aggressively boiled in an industrial vat. Because Dr. Welch's primitive 19th century pasteurization process essentially cooked the sugars and evaporated the water, it accidentally created a heavy caramelized flavor bomb. And a century later, industrial factories are trapped in a prison of their own design. They have to keep intentionally overcooking the juice, purely because generations of consumers now expect their real fruit to taste exactly like a factory accident from 1869. So the next time someone tells you that artificial grape flavor doesn't taste like real fruit, tell them they're partially right. It tastes like a piece of history.